Which LGBT food item had...
Jiggle my balls. What I see.
I don't know why it's... One by one.
Recently, like any good Gen Zer, I've been spending a fair amount of time on the internet. And while most of it is just calm, not necessarily mindless, but instead content watching, I've been taking a step back every now and then. Less consumption, more time doing other things, whether online or otherwise. And more often than not, when I do get back online, I can't help but notice how full and cluttered a lot of it feels, especially on mobile platforms. Not necessarily full in an exciting way, or full in the, oh man, there's so much I want to watch and do kind of way. It was more like walking into a small town Dollar General where there's unpacked carts of products everywhere, maybe even right in the middle of an aisle. If you know what I'm talking about anyways, you instantly get what I mean. Not that there isn't good stuff there, it's just that you have to wade through all the marked down junk to get to the things you actually need. When you're in these spaces, it feels like everything is demanding something from you. You're not only consuming, you have to be interacting in some way or another. It's an environment that treats your attention like a resource to be mined, as I am now. Is this working?
Yes.
Yay! And it's not all bad. I mean, I get it. Sometimes that's just part of the gig. The issue isn't that people are doing nothing or that their actions are hollow. If anything, it's the exact opposite. We watch, we save, we like, we comment. We open TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter 20 plus times a day just to feel like we're up to date when realistically nothing much has changed. But you still feel behind. That video you haven't watched yet, it'll be irrelevant in a couple days. That idea you haven't acted on, well, someone's probably already beat you to it by now. It all creates this really unnecessary, unimportant pressure on top of lives that are already stressful enough. It's the mindset of a shark, really. Stop moving, you die. And yeah, I'm exaggerating a bit because the feeling usually isn't that dramatic. It's subtle. A nagging at the back of your mind where you sit down to relax, even away from the internet, just to feel guilty about it later. The constant desire to be productive. It's annoying. And I don't think this is any of our personal faults. We're not really wasting as much time as we think we are. It's just the modern environment we've been conditioned to. We live in a world where every quiet moment is instantly filled by something else. Silence gets replaced by a little scrolling while we wait. Free time is just another opportunity for content. Even our most basic hobbies start to require drive or optimization in our minds. And again, this isn't always inherently a bad thing, but when rest starts becoming a chore, there's never really any rest at all. Never-ending feeds, systems and games that reward constant presence and engagement, on and on. I'm sure you've heard it all. The spaces that keep bringing me back, especially now, at my current stage of life, are the ones that don't rush me or pressure me to tune in tomorrow. I'm drawn to the communities, projects, and content built around passion, intent, and commitment, rather than speed and engagement. And sure, maybe some of it's that addictive feeling of nostalgia, but especially more recently than before, I think I've been drawn to them not because I want to do less or relive the glory days before the oversaturation of the online landscape, but because I wanted to be more purposeful again. Not just in the content I consume, but the games I play and the projects I take on too. Somewhere along the way, the allure of moving fast, of maintaining a presence in everything I do, stopped feeling like progress and instead like I just wanted to maintain any space in those communities I had left. So I have to stop and ask, why and when did everything we do online get so fast? And when did taking our time start feeling like stagnation? I don't think a lot of the speed in today's landscape came about because people necessarily wanted it to. It just got this way because it worked. And honestly, that speed did solve a lot of problems. It helped communities grow, allowing people to find each other more easily than ever. It helped ideas spread further and much more quickly. Most of all, it gave people with no audience at all an opportunity to suddenly have one. I mean, think about how many people we know now. How many people blew up in the 2020s because of these platforms. Short videos, fast posts, updates in an instant where you could do everything from a phone with nothing but CapCut and your camera roll. It made the internet feel alive and more accessible than ever. And for a time, this was great. Speed allowed people to say the same things quicker, and in a world that demands more time than ever, that mattered. It was adaptation at its finest. But, like many things, it eventually reaches a point. Faster stopped meaning better, especially from a quality standpoint, and instead became the default for so many. Shorter was smarter, and frequency meant relevancy. The visibility started to matter more than the thoughtfulness behind what content was actually put out there. And again, this wasn't really a decision we made, it was just the design of the system. That's what the algorithms rewarded, so obviously the user would play into it. I'm not trying to play a blame game. I'm not saying that there's some evil scheme just waiting to be uncovered or something like that. It's just efficiency and optimization doing what it does best. The next evolution, and naturally we all evolved alongside it. The problem arises when speed becomes the normality, the baseline, because then anything that isn't that becomes slow, even when by previous standards it really isn't. Taking time feels risky, and when quality takes time, you tend to come across less of it in a landscape like this. That's not to say it doesn't exist in any given place, it's just becoming more of a rarity. And this goes way beyond videos, if it feels like that's all I'm talking about. Games are riddled with microtransactions, pass systems, daily challenges, and so on, all designed to get you to check in every day that it's possible. Music gets broken down into trends or clips, and rarely does anyone listen to a full album anymore. Though I get that completely, thank God for playlists. Even full conversations get compressed down into quick reactions without any real thought or effort, and you'll be lucky to find a well-structured one anywhere online. And for the 100th time, none of this is initially all that bad. I'm not above any of it. I still watch short videos when I'm waiting around or just before bed. I still play games that demand my money and attention. So many of us do, despite knowing exactly what's happening. But when it all moves this fast, when the brakes stop working like they should, you really don't get to choose the pace anymore. You create faster because that's what's expected. You consume faster because that's all that's available. And this speed builds and builds until it stops becoming a tool that we use and one that uses us instead. All for that sweet, sweet ad revenue and user data. That's when it starts to feel weird, at least for me. Because even if everything is efficient, even though you could argue that you're keeping up, so much of what we end up consuming lacks that depth that we crave in the end. I think that's where a lot of people are right now in particular. Not necessarily rejecting the speed that we're used to, just starting to realize everything we're missing out on when we refuse to slow down.
Oh my god, that's deep. Jeez, what the
So if this fast-paced content is supposed to work so well, why doesn't it feel as satisfying? Why does it leave the viewer feeling just a little empty sometimes? The speed of today's platforms can do a lot. It connects people, it spreads ideas, it provides instant entertainment, all the stuff I've already mentioned before. But speed alone doesn't make anything last, because it's just that. Quick. Meaning doesn't form in an instant. It takes time. It needs to resonate to build that presence and connection before there's actually a meaningful message to take away. Look anywhere on the internet and you'll probably see this play out. Trends spike out of nowhere, peak for a few days, maybe a week or two if you're really lucky, then disappear as fast as they came. Most content passes through our feeds once and then poof, it's gone. Or maybe it's recycled in some other form later down the line. But select things stick. Some culture resurfaces years later. Even old memes get referenced here and there, and relatively recent TikTok culture, like the dancing cows on the first of every month, cycles back now and then too. These massive trends that never really fade away. These things don't stick because they were fast, but rather because they either had some meaning or they were so beloved by the people that experienced them. Or yes, sure, there's the obvious nostalgia once again, but it's more than that. When you lived through those things, when they stuck around longer, they built context. They lived inside and outside communities and became part of the internet culture's shared memory. That's the strange irony of short-form content and today's platforms. It delivers constantly, endlessly, but only selective pieces truly endure. Most of what moves through vanishes without a trace. Resonance is what leads to survival, not speed. We feel it in our own habits too, whether we realize it or not. Think back to the past couple days. Really think about what content you've consumed. The scrolling, tapping, liking, maybe leaving a comment or some really odd reaction image in the TikTok comments, because we all know those stickers are getting way out of hand. We're constantly moving from post to clip to news, brain rot, and all the filler in between. And at the end of the day, when we put it all down, we feel full, sure, but not necessarily satisfied, if that makes any sense. Yeah, we were entertained, we got some good laughs out of it, some occupation, maybe even some good information. But when you try to think back to what actually stuck out of all that consumption, there's barely anything that comes to mind as meaningful. It's like you were busy the entire day, but nothing actually happened, nothing settled. And when you take a step back and look at the things that have stuck with you, much of it in the past, that contrast becomes so much clearer. They usually aren't the fast, demanding things, but instead what took time and dedication. The Minecraft world you spent years working on, the layout, the farms and builds and whatever else. Maybe that one space in VR that left you in awe, or you just had some dumb fun in, or a conversation you had. Maybe it's a game you played that actually told a meaningful story that stuck with you. Or even a community you got involved with long ago that still creates and collaborates to this day. It's all highly personal, unique to everyone, but what they all share is the fact that these experiences, more often than not, didn't require constant attention. They invited attention naturally, simply because of what they were, built out of passion and intention. They exist at their own pace and on their own terms, and that's what causes them to linger, and what makes people drawn back to them all these years later, what makes us have those 2-week phases without really knowing why. That's where the divide between these two formats exists. Quick, high-action content that keeps viewers engaged is great for filling time. It keeps our minds distracted and occupied. It fills time, but it doesn't fill space. That space where meaning takes shape and where memories actually form in a meaningful way. We start noticing that speed can't provide everything, that something is missing, despite having all we could ever ask to consume. So, in my mind, maybe that's the realization that a lot of people are coming to now. Not that short-form content or flashy, quick media is useless or our enemy, but that the things that stick, that positively shape our preferences and way of thinking over time, usually aren't the quickest ones, but the ones that had the space to be deeper given the proper attention instead. I think it's important that you understand that I truly don't think this feeling, that the whole thesis of this video is just some personal feeling I have. Maybe you can attest to that, who knows. It's not my burnout reaching a crazed state or purely just a sign of my taste changing or even me growing tired of how the internet works nowadays. It's so much more widespread than that, and the results show for themselves. After years of this landscape dominated by short, hyper-edited media, I feel like we're kind of watching a correction take place. Not all of us, not the whole internet, but a sizable chunk of people. So many viewers, users, players, whatever, seem to be reaching for the things that ask more thinking, more interest, problem solving, and knowledge from them, instead of less. Don't take my word for it necessarily. I mean, you can clearly see it in many of the videos people are actually choosing to watch here on this platform. Long-form content is thriving again. Whether that's YouTube trying to cram in as many advertisements as possible and choosing to promote the longer videos, or the conscious choice of the viewer, it's working regardless. Essays, documentaries, ARG analysis videos, lore videos, deep dives, lost media, the list goes on. Videos that take nearly an hour, if not much more of your time, they're doing great. My personal favorite examples are any of Redolin's videos exploring dead games, any of Fern's deep dives into some of the most interesting real-world stories I never knew happened, or Farrell McGuire's looks into some of the most deranged yet interesting corners of internet and media. And just beyond that, I get interesting, well-made and thought-out videos from channels I've never heard of, topics I never thought of, on my page all the time, that I find myself constantly watching. They assume and go to show that you, the viewer, are willing to stay, to listen, and invest your time and thought into the content you consume and the stories these creators tell. And a lot of these people only upload maybe a couple times a month, which was unheard of in previous years, a sin against the algorithm, but doesn't seem to be an issue now. Watch time, quality, and pure trust in the creator matter as much as frequency anymore. And short form content didn't disappear, and it certainly didn't become bad either. It still has its place and still has a massive grip over so many people, don't get me wrong, but it's no longer all that people want to consume. It's becoming perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Viewers recognize that sometimes one thoughtful, lovingly made video means more than 10 quick ones. The shift can be seen beyond content too, and more into the general culture of the internet itself. While it's still a huge part of the incentive of being online, many people seem less concerned with having a large presence, going viral, and having all the reach they can. Being part of a community has as much meaning as ever. Presence starts to matter more than performance. People don't want to endlessly chase that visibility anymore, as much as they just want a place online to belong, share their creativity, and connect with those that share the same interests. Gaming culture seems to be reflecting this just as much too. My favorite example, Minecraft, never truly lost relevance because it was never built around speed. You could speed through it, but it was never demanded of you. It always worked more like a canvas, one that lets people build their own worlds, make their own stories, and foster their own communities, however small or large. Or take the growing love for story-driven games, where people recognize and appreciate the ability to take in something meaningful at their own pace, in their own way, on their own terms, without being pushed along every step of the way. These experiences don't demand your attention. They just give you the opportunity to give as much or as little of it as you want without commitment, all because you care about what you're building up or the story you're playing a part in. And really, even in the corners of the internet that continue to fade, people still seem to be involved. Take the iOS jailbreak scene, for example. The latest version that can be fully jailbroken is iOS 16, at least for most devices. A version that came out in September of 2022. My very phone that I use to this day is on this version, jailbroken using a tool called Dopamine. Over the years, thanks to Apple's growing security, jailbreaks became fewer and farther between, and the advantages to having a jailbroken device continued to decrease. Even as the scene continues to slip further and further into obscurity, passionate people continue to research, develop, and create. Tweaks still come out to this day. Hell, I'm currently developing one myself. Even more notably, the community recently got a semi-jailbreak for iOS 17, but only on the 0.0 version. While the details are unimportant for this video, the key takeaway is that even with so little hope, people continue to develop because they care. They have a passion for the space, the desire to have ownership over their devices. It's not profitable, it's not trendy, it's just what these people love, and they want to contribute to what they love, regardless if fewer people will be there to appreciate it than there were before. None of this is a rejection of speed that propels so much of today's internet. Not at all. It's just a course correction. Speed is still a powerful tool, but it's being used as the tool it originally started as once again, instead of the default. And thanks to that correction, there's finally space for things to settle again, for our minds to breathe and really take in what we consume. Space for creativity to be showcased to its deepest extent once again. Revisiting older formats doesn't mean taking a step back, when it can also be a step forward. I just feel like I need to reiterate, I don't think the small shifts we've been seeing mean we need to abandon modern platforms or fast-paced content. Not by a long shot. For most people, myself included, this just isn't realistic. Short videos, instant updates, the ability to post or make something so conveniently and quickly, these abilities aren't the enemy or something like that. They fill the gaps, they pass time that would otherwise be mundane, and sometimes that's all someone needs. But I do think that this opens the door for a choice, one that a lot of people don't fully recognize yet. This is where it starts to get more personal. I'm a full-time college student with a part-time job, a relationship to maintain, a small but growing social life, and my personal health to look out for. For the longest time, not just by the internet, but by friends, parents, and others invested in my life, I've been told to do the most with every moment and opportunity I have, which isn't wrong and is why I am who I am today. But if there's anything I've learned, it's that time and energy are limited, more than you might think. And that's kind of the point, kind of what makes the things you do in life so meaningful and rewarding. A lot of the pressure we feel online from others comes from the perception that we don't have those limits, or we do have those limits, but so does someone else, and yet they seem to be making everything work. We act like we can match the pace forever, chasing the next productivity-induced high without it costing us anything at all. But if we manage to look past this, to dedicate ourselves to something slower instead of the normality, that choice starts to feel so much more intentional. Sitting down to watch a longer video, starting off a project that won't pay off until months down the road, or sticking with a game or community you truly care for even after the novelty wears off. Minecraft was always so appealing to me because I was able to freely create, to dedicate my time to a world that was always there when I came back, to literally progress something of my own creation over a long span of time, and to have that dedication reflected back to me in the world that changed alongside myself. I didn't have to justify those hours to anyone, except my parents. I just got to build and play how I wanted. It mattered because I cared. I had passion for that which was mine, not because it brought me favor with someone else. The same goes for the overall love for VR as a technology and medium that I adore. It's so free to be able to move about and interact with the environment as myself, and so many of VR's experiences lend themselves to being as open-ended as something like Minecraft. The conversations, the quiet, breathtaking worlds lovingly created by users like me, the fights or tinkering I could do in something like Bone Lab, the human moments, interaction with others, those moments where it looked like nothing was happening when really anything under the sun could have been. The space is so creative, so diverse, and so uncluttered that it feels free to some degree. And when you start applying that mindset to the choices you make and spending your time, you start appreciating the process and stop expecting instant reaction and results. Choosing to make something that might take weeks or months over a few days and then actually completing what you set out to do, one of the best feelings ever. And everything is just made with so much more love, attention, detail, and most of all, intent. You start asking yourself if what you're doing feels honest or fulfilling, even if no one really ever sees or recognizes it. Eventually, this spills into everything else. How you watch content and how you interact with others. How you wake up and start your day, and overall just value more depth than anything. This isn't some productivity rant or some self-improvement message to detox yourself from dopamine, build a home server, pirate everything, only watch 3-hour-long YouTube documentaries, and start writing in journals. It's about allowing yourself to slow down, despite the online landscape urging you to never even bother to try. Meaningful creativity shouldn't have to be born out of exhaustion, and engagement doesn't have to be constant or in the thousands to be real. Care about things that might not be as popular with or widely used by others. Choose experiences that aren't in a 9:16 aspect ratio. For me, that looks like taking a calmer, more lovingly curated approach to my content, projects, and life. Acting how I want and creating what I want whenever I want in the best quality and format that I can. Treating my time with the intent and care it deserves.
You missed your attack, and I am still goofy.
I don't think any of this means we're moving back to some old version of the internet, if that's what you gathered from this, or that most things will start slowing back down and expanding to something similar to what we've seen before. If anything, the majority of the internet is moving just as fast as ever, and it's likely to keep and even build that momentum. But what has changed is that more people than ever are realizing they don't have to be moving at that speed all the time. We're moving past the feeling of a cluttered Dollar General, not necessarily because the aisles got any clearer. Those employees are still on their smoke break even after 2 hours. Rather, because we've finally gotten good at wading through all the cheap yet overwhelming junk to find the things that actually matter to us. There's a growing appreciation for things that actually ask something of the user, and I think that alone is a positive outlook for the future of people online. Longer videos with real depth and thought are making a resurgence, and born out of them are communities that value commitment and collaboration instead of hype. In the sea of instant gratification and lackluster effort, that kind of depth really stands out. It's not about rejecting modern platforms, but realizing that they too have a place alongside everything else we consume, and that we truly have a choice in what we want to engage with, to decide when speed is useful or when it gets in the way of our larger goals. For me, that choice is going to be made in how I create, being okay with things taking longer than expected, with results showing slowly or never at all, caring more if a project feels like an honest showcase of my passions and abilities instead of a slam dunk with an imaginary audience. I'm letting my projects exist because they're just that, mine, and they matter to me. And if you're feeling the same way I was, tired of the sense of being full but not satisfied, I hope you give yourself the same option as others have to slow down and pour your time into something that matters to you, as large or small as it is. I don't know where anything leads. I don't know if this small resurgence in long-form content that spurred this whole idea in video into existence is here to stay, or just yet another trend thrown into the vastness of the internet. Hell, maybe there was no resurgence and it's all just my perspective. Maybe this is just some glorified New Year's resolution. Maybe. Hopefully you don't see it that way. But really, this whole thing doesn't need a neat answer. Nothing is cut and dry. At the end of the day, the internet is a tool. It may be a cluttered mess of carts, $1 deals, and plastic junk. Or it could be one big space to fill as you see fit. It all depends on what you're looking for and how much time you're willing to spend searching. Just remember, it'll only be as great as you make it. Create, consume, and live with intent. Thanks for watching.